Hi, Carmen. How are you?
Good morning, Carla. I'm so delighted to see you. Wonderful day today.
Thank you for joining me. Welcome, everyone, to the Conscious Beauty Podcast. My goal in creating this podcast is to teach others and myself how to elevate and find the most beautiful, conscious, and divine version of ourselves. My favorite thing is to find people who are bringing light to this world and who help others find the gifts that they have within them so that we can make this world a better place. When I came across you, Carmen, there was something about you. There was this table of books, and I just was drawn to this light that was just standing before me. I wasn't sure what these books were about. So I started to review them, and I'll give you an example. This is what they look like, right? So there's this table with all these white books laying there. And I thought to myself, what is this? Okay, the teachings of Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov. Who is this man? So from that point to this moment now, it's been quite a journey of being called to learn the teachings of this great master and finding my way through where to start with so many great teachings that Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov offers. How do you even begin? So this is why I wanted to bring you on the podcast, Carmen. And I wanted to know more about his teachings and how his teachings have affected your life.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me, Carla. Meeting you at Conscious Life Expo just opened up many doors. And one of those doors is today being able to bring tools so that we can move into a golden age, which starts with us inside doing the work on ourselves. So finding this teaching, first of all, for me was a rather long path because I come from a Catholic background. My family was very religious, and it didn't satisfy me because I couldn't find answers. And I thought there has to be many ways to get to God. There can't be just one path and everybody else is condemned for eternity. It didn't make sense to my young mind. And I used to sing songs to God, uh, jumping to school, and I invented these little "Que je t'aime, mon Dieu," "Oh, I love you, my God." It's like I invented them, so there was something in me that was really, really thirsty for something more in life. So I went to a yoga school in the United States where I trained as a yoga teacher. Then I started to see a little broader than what the church had been teaching us. And then I went to the Rosicrucian, to the Ekankar, to the Gnostic Society, and I started feeling like there was a thread connecting them. Like most of them believe in reincarnation, which suited me because I was maybe 13 or 14 years old and I was reading about reincarnation at the search of Bridie Murphy books that had been translated in French and that I had to hide so my parents wouldn't find them. Otherwise, I risked excommunication. And then at the yoga school, I was 24 years old then. We were reading a book of Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov about love and sexuality. I was in the prime of my life and I was really interested by what he was saying. Like this was a total new approach to sexuality. And somebody showed me a picture of him, and I said, "Oh, he looks like such a wise man." And the person told me, "He is actually a true master." And I said, "Oh, how I would love to meet such a true master." Well, I didn't realize that just this wish distilled in my soul for a few years until after going through all these seminars and workshops and trying to bring my mind into a more universal approach, that what I had been reading when I was at the yoga school, that's back in 1976, was actually guiding me through that thread and bringing me to the teaching of Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov. But I was a bit stubborn and a bit of a feminist. So I had put a prayer under my pillow that said, Father, Mother God, where is universal truth and cosmic light? I don't want nothing less. I don't want the Moonies, the Hare Krishnas, or I want something that I can go on living. I was in the airline industry. So I prayed, knelt by my bed every night with my little paper under my pillow, and I kept asking for universal love and cosmic light. Where is my family of souls? I can't be the only one being vegetarian and believing in reincarnation. I had gotten that far on my own without any structure, without any kind of outer movement or anything. And it was through a concert of the brotherhood. They were brothers and sisters, and there was a classical part with Te Deum and classical music. And then there was these Bulgarian songs that were so moving. It was in Bulgarian. I didn't understand a word of what they were saying, but there was something. I felt like a fountain coming up. And then when it got to my throat, I didn't know what to do. And then tears started flowing very gently. And it was like I touched a space, a vibration that I'd never experienced before. And so I told the girlfriend who had invited me to that concert, I said, next time this choir sings again, buy me a ticket. I want to go and check things again. And I remember my yoga teacher saying, truth, you don't analyze it. Truth, you feel it. So I told my girlfriend, Jacqueline, I said, I felt something and I cannot analyze it. It's like my brain was frozen. I didn't know the words. So some months later, another concert was being advertised, and I went, and I was really prepared to experience something of the same nature. No, not this time. But what happened
in your head?
Well, yes, my analytical mind was in prompt motion.
Yes. Expectation too. Expectation. Yeah.
That's right. But this time in the songs and the new repertoire they were presenting, there was a song where the words Život blažen, život blažen, 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 život blažen, and they stayed. And I remember going back home, and I was in the subway in Montreal, and these words are still coming up for several days. So I called that same girlfriend and I said, what are those words meaning? Now, she had just joined this choir and had the singing book. So she went to look up and she called me back and she said, blissful life. Oof, I said, there's something, I cannot put my finger on it, but something is touching me beyond my intellect. She said, well, why don't you come singing with us? And I said, well, I have no voice. I said I was kicked out of music school because I couldn't relate to music very well. And she told me, if you can speak, you can sing. It's just a matter of training your vocal cords. So eventually I did join the choir and recognized that all these people singing in the choir, they were all followers. They're all disciples of this teaching. I said, what a way to get me to pay attention through a way that I could make that bridge, that connection.
Did your friend ever talk to you about that? She never mentioned that?
Not really. It was like our friendship was a long time friendship. We were at the yoga school together. I had met her before the yoga school. It was thanks to her that I ended up in Vermont and take that training. But I had not really made the connection that she was so involved that she had joined this choir. And it was her who told me, well, we're all reading the books of Master Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov. We're all brothers and sisters of the Universal White Brotherhood, of this movement. Now, this was like the downloading of a lot of information. But I said, okay, I'm going to join the choir and practice. But I had learned through my growth and development that I would hit a place called the dark night of the soul. And I knew that my ego would rebel against me, that my lower self would try to hold me back as I grew into something more luminous. So I kind of expected it. So I put a date on the calendar that I would go singing for 6 months and start reading these books. And I would reevaluate 6 months later if it was worth the effort. So it was maybe 2 months or 3 months into the rehearsal of the singing that I hit that dark night of the soul, where I could find every reason in the world to stop. It didn't match my flying schedule. I had to drive to the airport for my flying. Then I had to drive to town, which was an hour drive to the airport or an hour drive to the singing rehearsal. It was winter. And then I caught it. I said, I know what this is. This is my personality, my lower self, who doesn't want my energy to go there because it's going to lose me as a player in the scenario of the personality that always wants to have its own kind of existence separate from the divine. So I said, no, 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 no. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to fall for this dark night of the soul. I'm going to go through that date, which was February something, and I'm going to stay through until then I will reevaluate. Well, that was such a turning point, Carla, because once I made the decision to follow through, it's like the personality stood back because it didn't have power over me. And I entered into a state of almost bliss. I would drive my little Tercel car and I would say, the roof is about 20 feet high. Like I felt my consciousness was so expanded that I said, how do I fit in the car? Like the singing, the reading gave me such an uplift. When the date came of February, well, that was so easy. I said, I know I belong here. I know what I'm touching now. I've never touched through anything before. The singing, what I was reading, the books, and I said, I will read these books until I'm finished, the 2 collections. So there's the small, colorful books that you saw at Conscious Life Expo, and the white books, which is the integral collection of the talks of Master Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov. And I became so happy. I really felt I had found my family of souls. They were all vegetarians. They were all believe in reincarnation. So I was no longer a stranger in the world. It made me feel like,
Yes.
whoo, I can be myself. Yeah, yeah, that was the
You
little
joined
story.
the club.
Yes,
A
a
good
divine
club, a
club.
good club.
A divine club.
So that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. That's just incredible. I understand when you come across pure truth, you can only feel it. And that's how I feel about God. It's not really something you can think about. It's more like, do you feel it or you don't? Right? So that's the difference. You can't really analyze it because it's too big to comprehend. We don't have the understanding
That's
because
right.
we're so limited, unfortunately, in understanding such a grand concept. So, really quickly, when I wanted to start learning these teachings, I asked God because I thought to myself, where am I going to start? And then I asked God, can you just show me where to start? And so he showed me to start with the book that I brought up earlier, which was The Splendor of Tifereth. And I really didn't understand what that meant. And of course, the yoga of the sun, I was attracted to that because I practice yoga. I wanted to really explore what Omram is talking about regarding the yoga of the sun, and then what the splendor of Tifereth meant. Now, after researching it, I realized it had something to do with Kabbalah. I am not too familiar with the Kabbalah, and I really, really want to study that. So I wanted to start with this and I want you to explain to me what this whole thing means. And I
Okay.
think this would be a great place to start with his teachings because it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever come across.
Yes. Well, to start with, Master Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov has a very universal approach to his teaching. So in this case, we're talking about the Kabbalah because the Kabbalah is the best system that explains the structure of the universe. Sometimes he will use like the subtle bodies that we see here, which is a Hindu system. And sometimes he goes so deep into Christians' belief with an extra understanding of what we might have missed out in between the lines. So in this particular case for this book, Tiferet represents in the tree of life the center of the tree of life, and that's the sun. And the sun takes such an importance into his teaching because the sun is like the reflection of the Christ consciousness. It's if we had to put an image to Christ, maybe the sun would be the best way to represent it. Of course, Christ is far more than the ball of fire we see in the sky, but as the sun representing the source of life, the source of light, and the source of warmth. Now, that structure of the sun is also our own structure through the mind as the light, through the heart as the warmth, and life, which we have. We are incarnated so that life, the heart, and the mind is part of what we need to develop in order to get into the Christ consciousness. So, and also, Aquarius is coming, and Aquarius brings a new energy that takes us out of labels as we've had for thousands of years, labels that were useful for humanity to advance. But now we're at a point where we can drop labels on the outside and come back within, come back to God within, to solar beings that we are. We are a trinity like the sun is a trinity. So in the teaching of Master Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov, the sun has a primordial place. We attend sunrise in the good seasons. We don't go in the winter so we don't get cold, but we do an inner work that resemble a sunrise, a physical sunrise, where we link with the sun, we link with the light as wisdom, as the warmth, as love, and as life, as divine life.
Thank you so much, Carmen. So, regarding the sun, you were mentioning that this is the central force of the universe and how it basically reflects the central force we have within us. Can you elaborate more on that?
Well, the sun as we see it in our galaxy is the center of our solar system, but there's other solar systems as well. But if we bring it back at the concept that we can assimilate and work with, the sun is like the dot in the center of the circle. So that would be like our solar system. And if the sun wasn't there, there would be chaos because that's what the point of reference, like the center, the heliocentric point of view, if you want, where all the planets have their place and they're turning in a harmonious manner. When in the old days people believed that the earth was at the center and that the sun was turning, it's like they were looking from their ego point of view. They were looking from their limited concept of things. And it took many, many centuries for people to accept that it was actually the sun that was at the center and that the planets have a very harmonious system of turning, each on its own, but also turning around in the system. In our spiritual life, trying to put the sun in the center of our life is trying to put God in the center of our life. Or in a more accessible way, our own spirit. Our own spirit is a spark of God, so it is divine. If we were putting our spirit at the center of our life, which means when we have decisions to make, do we go back to that reference, or do we only choose from the ego point of view? We will earn more money, maybe we will have more prestige, maybe it'll give us more power. But is that what spirit needs? Maybe not. So, this schematic that I have here, where we have our lower nature, which is referred to as the personality, it's us playing on the scene of life. It's not our true nature, but we take every aspect of the comedy to play our scene. We have our willpower, which is related to life and the sun. We have our heart and we have our intellect. This line here is like the line that separates our ego or lower self, the personality. So the astral body is connected to the heart, the mental body is connected to the intellect. But above this line here is our higher self, our divine self. Because we have life, because we are a spark of God, these are connected to us, but we've never paid attention to them. It's like if you break an arm and the arm is in a cast for a month, you have to rehabilitate your arm to do the movement. You do like physiotherapy to give it its mobility. Well, this is like the same kind of a situation. We've never used those, so they are not working for us. We have to awaken them. We have to do a celestial physiotherapy to get them to move and work for us. So for the will, well, let's start with the intellect. We have the higher reason. That's where wisdom is. And that's where all the world of prototypes are. This is all the sacred geometry is in that level of the higher reason. Then we have the Buddhic body, which is connected to our soul. And then we have the Atmic body, which is connected to our spirit. Well, this is all of us here. Our true self is those two, not killing the ego and doing away from the ego, but engaging the ego to be a servant of our higher self, of our higher nature. So the sun, when we work with the sun, is we're trying to awaken our divine nature so that it starts operating through all the acquisitions we've had for thousands of years, which some of those are not all pretty. We have patterns, we have old cliches, we have all these things that have allowed us to survive to this day through thousands and thousands of incarnations. So they are not to be destroyed. All these elements we've accumulated that makes the lower self or the personality. I don't like to use the word ego necessarily, but most people relate to this. So it's a matter of using the higher self so that it starts serving the lower self, the ego. So we don't deny, we don't repress, we don't push away all these acquisitions, but we put them to use. And Carla, let me tell you, the biggest jump I've done spiritually is when I looked at my faults and my vices and learned to use them to go forward rather than feeling self-pity, rather than feeling shame, rather than saying, oh, I'm only up to there. It's like redress yourself and use these. So if I have a moment of anger, let me go do some gardening and let me transfer this anger into something that will turn into beautiful flowers. So it's engaging. And then it goes so far as to think that where does evil fit in there? What we considered as evil maybe is a very limited understanding of an energy that when that energy is transmuted into something of a higher nature, maybe it doesn't have the same understanding. Maybe that becomes an element that one can digest, work with, and bring forth as an alchemist into something golden, into something luminous. I had never read anything like this in my Catholic background. It's like the division was so enormous between hell and heaven that they were unreconcilable. Well, if God is one, where does this duality sit in the mind of God if he is one? And thanks to this teaching, I've reconciled myself with so much of what was divisive that becomes now a form of unity in my work. And I heard recently a recorded talk of the Master where he was saying at the levels of angels and archangels and higher up in the hierarchy of God, hell doesn't exist. It's just not there. It's the kind of energy that the frequency doesn't fit there.
Yes.
It is only at our human level because of our frequency, because we hold that division within us. We still operate from here. So of course there's hell here. But rather than fighting it, why not put it to work? Why not to put it at the service of, like, we should have a high ideal here. Our high ideal should be like to become as luminous as the sun, to become as vast as the universe, to become as powerful as God, and to become one with God. If we had such a high ideal, these energies here would stop fighting us and they would start wanting to work for this because they're going to be part of it. The day we become one with God, we're going to carry all the memory, all the transmuted elements that we've worked on ourselves. And that's what gives so much beauty and power, is that we've worked for it and we have become that we were created for.
I think that's so incredible because Omram, in his books, he's talking about the magic of that, the true alchemy, and those little things that if we just understood how to use it, it's available to us everywhere. And when he talks about just practicing looking at the sun and becoming one with the sun, so to speak, is becoming one with God. But when you're viewing it, you naturally embody it. And that's why you have to be careful with what you're viewing in general and only bring in beautiful, wondrous things because it will affect you. So you might as well view something as luminous as the sun, because even for those people who do not believe in a higher force, higher power in God, if they can even just connect with the sun, which is visual and something they can experience, right, in the here and now, they can tap into that at least, whether they realize what's happening or not.
Yes.
But when you're consciously aware of it, then you're able to tap into the magic that those prophets, including Jesus Christ, knew about.
Yes. Well, you know that statement, what you contemplate, you become. Because our eyes are like the windows that allow us to reach like the soul. And that's why art has such a big importance. What we watch, does it off balance because you don't know where the arms and the legs are and it's so deformed that you look at it and you cannot find any beauty or aesthetic in it, it will influence you. This chaos that you're looking at is influencing through your eyes your subconscious. So when we go to contemplate the sun, which is such a symbol of perfection, then that perfection impregnates on our little cells. I was listening to a podcast by Jack Kruse. He's a neurosurgeon. He's done such great accomplishments in his life. And the podcast I was listening to, the interviewer was asking, well, how do we build more light into our body? And Jack Kruse says, go and contemplate the sunrise, because that light impregnates the electron and the electron communicates with the body. And this is how you can increase the light in you. So I was so thankful to hear that from a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
But like when the master was saying, if you do your work properly with the light, you will feel a clarity in your mind. There are problems that you know how to solve. All of a sudden, you find a solution. And you feel more warmth in your heart, which means you feel more loving. All of a sudden, you're able to accept things that before were making you angry or rebellious. Now, all of a sudden, you find some kind of compassion and love in your heart because the sun is feeding you this impersonal love. The sun distributes its warmth to everybody, whether you wear a hat or not.
Yeah.
It reaches. So it's very, very beautiful when you look at the symbolism of the sun and the work you can do on yourself and how you can verify in your life that there's more harmony, there's more beauty, there's more understanding. And that's the result of your work, but we have to do the work. The sun on its own remains physical for many people. They don't yet understand the spiritual aspect of the sun in their own development and blossoming. So, yeah.
We just have it all wrong because our society makes you believe you got to run away from the sun. You know, you want to wear sunglasses to cover the eyes. That's preventing those photons from coming into your body, to your mitochondria, right? I'm very curious. I mean, I know this isn't a medical podcast, but I'm curious as to why people or we have been led to believe that the sun can cause skin cancer. That is something I really, really want to figure out. You know,
We,
is that true or not?
well, if we understand where is humanity at the moment, like humanity is so materialistically involved. It's like, but it was part of cosmic intelligence goal that we know ourselves through everything available. And now, like we've descended into matter, we've descended, like if you look at the history of humanity, we don't have to fight so much to get our food, like go hunting. We're organized as a society. We have grown so much. Look at all the sciences, look at all the art, look at everything that humanity has developed itself into. But it's very materialistically oriented. The interest is to either make more money, that some of the pharmaceutical companies are only looking after their profit and not necessarily after just the well-being of people. And look at even the arts, look at politics, look at every aspect of life. It is so entrenched into matter. But we're at the point, Carla, we're almost at rock bottom of where we can go as a humanity if we do not integrate the divine within our life. Because the means are so powerful, we could actually self-destruct ourselves. This is at the point we're at. Science doesn't know anymore the difference between good and bad. So what can save humanity at the moment is to wake up spiritually and put the trust that spirit is within you, willing to help you. We have to rise like the phoenix from the ashes. We have to go back to our primordial glory of owning the divinity within us. And the only way that can happen at the moment, well, you know, as an author in the Aquarian team, I wrote a chapter in what the future of humanity could be. And that chapter was called Involution and Evolution. We're in the cycle of involution. We're going down, 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 down. But at the same time, their spirit is calling to evolve. So we're at the beginning of the evolution cycle where we finally integrate spirituality in our life. It can happen in three ways. Either because you're very intuitive and you find your way to God. The second way is because you're questioning. And I come from that category. I was always a big questioner to my parents. Question, question, question. And the third way is when you're stuck in problems, when you suffer. That could be through an illness, that could be through a fire, an accident. The life puts you so many obstacles that you end up breaking the shell of your resistance. And you say,
Mm-hmm.
why me? Why me? Why me? Or why did God send me this? And then finally, through that crack of suffering, some light starts coming in. You hear the right thing, you find the right book, you find the right inspiration, and you begin your growth and your development. What we're going through as a humanity now is like the system is cracking everywhere. The shell
Mm-hmm.
of everything is cracking, not in order to destroy humanity, but to give us the opportunity to wake up, to give us the opportunity to say, there's got to be something more. There's got to be something. Why are we going through all this? And by questioning, then you may find the right books. And that's why when we go to expos like Conscious Life Expo, we have all these books, because wherever you're at in life, whatever your situation, your condition, there is a way for you to find your way back to God. And I mean God within. I don't mean God in an institution out there.
Mm-hmm.
And these books are accessible because it's a spoken language. It's not a complicated language. The master himself never wrote anything. He talked for 49 years, gave and gave means and solutions and methods and images so that we can take ourselves where we're at. This is not for an elite class. This is
Yes.
for everybody, wherever you're at. So when I go to expos like this, I tell people, what's your interest? What are you here for today?
Mm-hmm.
And they tell me, oh, because of psychic stuff, or because I'm interested in alchemy, or in nutrition, or I want to become a mother and I would like to prepare myself to bring a better child in the world. Well, we have enough subject to cover every aspect of life. So people cannot find an excuse anymore that they haven't had the chance to walk a luminous path. They can. It's up to them to make up their mind. And so, yes, we are a very materialistic society, but we are at the dawn of a new age. Aquarius is bringing a lot of light. Of course, it has all its scientific things and AI and futuristic things that we haven't seen today, but which are coming so fast. But at the same time, Aquarius carries the bearer of water, the bearer of a new life. And this new life is integrating our divine self into every action of our life. It's not time to go into monasteries anymore, or to go into grottos, or to seek samadhi just to save our soul. These were the old days. The new days is to how to integrate the divine into everything I do, whether I wash the
Yes.
floor or wash the windows, how to bring the presence of spirit so that as I wash the floor, I wash my soul and my heart. And as I wash the windows, may clarity come through everything I operate with. So you can bring the presence of spirit. And that's what will make a new humanity rise. When there's enough people that integrate the divine within their life, there will be a solar civilization. That's what Aquarius is bringing. It's bringing a solar concept of looking at life and looking at our own psyche so that everything is balanced and reflects all those beautiful elements into our everyday life, into who we are with heart, mind, and willpower, into action.
Just beautiful. When you talk about balancing, I know that, the most important thing that I have learned thus far is learning to balance the divine feminine and the divine masculine that I have within me. We spoke earlier about this, that, I come from the generation which I grew up in the 80s, where it seemed like women's role took over the workforce during that time. So I was kind of programmed to work, 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 and I found myself not thinking that I didn't need a man to live. I could do everything on my own. Just having a family wasn't important. I wanted to have a career. That was very important for me. And so important that I eventually burned out. But it wasn't until I met my husband that I have now, who really showed me how I was acting. And I didn't really allow him to do things for me, like whether it's opening the door or just simple things like getting me pots and pans, that I needed for my kitchen that I didn't realize that I needed. And so it took probably a good 4 years to kind of allow myself to break out of that cycle. And now I'm so excited to really understand what it is to be feminine and to have feminine energy, and how to really thank God for the fact that I have the codes to give life, and really honor that men and women are different, and we have to respect that and honor it and welcome the differences rather than hate the differences. So I wanted you to really elaborate on that, because I know you're an expert at that, so to speak.
I wouldn't say an expert. I can only explain things from what I understand from the teaching and what I apply into my life and see the results from. So that's where I'm coming from. So if we are at the image of God, and it says at the likeness, but we're not there yet. We don't have the likeness, but the image, what would that image be? So in order to understand ourselves better, maybe we need to understand what initiatic science brings. And initiatic science is the term that Master Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov uses for his teaching. But this teaching has belonged to all the great teachers and masters of humanity, except they can only reveal things as humanity was willing to receive it. That's why they talked in an epic form, like in ancient India, or Jesus talked in parable. Well, Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov talks with images so that we can understand, and through the images go deeper into things. But it's not everybody that catches it, or that catches what the symbolism was of the parables of Jesus, or they only understood part of it, like the tip of the iceberg, and the rest was not understood. So if we go based on this initiatic science, there's the world of unity, God, the one, right? And God decided to manifest himself through his creation. So he had to polarize himself, come out of his dot. And that became like positive, negative. Not as being negative, as being detrimental, but as having electricity and magnetism. So electricity is the one that goes forward, that delivers. It's the one that emanates. And the negative is the one that is receptive. Through the positive and negative, they started working together and created movement. That became the air, and that became too much magnetism brings rain, too much electricity brings statics. So in this image, it means we have the eternal masculine, the eternal feminine. And you recognize that even by the anatomy of the man. Oops, springs forward. And the woman, her anatomy is to receive. So you have the eternal masculine, the eternal feminine at the very, very foundation of creation. And everything else follows this pattern, even into the scientific world, where you have the acid and the base, and you put them together and you have the solution. So it's like the salt. So it's like once you understand that initiatic science covers from the divine to the psychological world to the physical world, and it goes through all the kingdom, the animal, vegetable, mineral kingdom. That system is like standing on its own. It holds all the truths that you can have. So we, as being in the image of God, we have that eternal masculine feminine. That's why we're always looking for the partner, but to complete ourselves, because we are separated. We have not yet integrated the masculine feminine to the point that we have that unity. And so when we manifest ourselves, me in a feminine body at the moment, how do I bring in my masculine principle into action? Well, right now I'm the one delivering to you. It's my masculine principle. When you say something, I become into my feminine aspect. I become receptive. And now you're the one delivering. If we know just these two things in all our relationships, when to be emissive, when to be receptive. Some people are always in their masculine principle, whether they carry the habit of a man or the habit of a woman. They deliver, they can't shut up. They're so emissive. Well, it's very tiring for them. It's off balance, for one thing. And eventually, unless they always find somebody who's receptive to them, they end up being very lonely. Yes. On the other hand, it's the same thing when somebody is too feminine, when somebody is too emotional, too sensitive, too sensitive to everything. They're flooded in tears. They're flooded into lack of discernment. They can't move forward. They're always confused in this flood of magnetism. It's no better. So the idea is to know oneself. Know thyself, and you will know the secret of the universe. Know that you have both. When to operate with your masculine principle, when to operate with your feminine principle. It's a cosmic balance. There are beings who are androgynous, like, for example, the Master Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov. He never needed to marry. He knew from a very young age that he was not going to need a girl in his life or a woman in his life, although many of them wanted to marry him. He says, I'm sorry, I have my own woman inside of me. And when he traveled in India, he was told, you have come to help women. You understand women better than they understand themselves. Because he saw that feminine, eternal feminine principle holds the key to transform humanity. Why? Because it's the women with their psyche and with their physicality that attracts the magnetism from the cosmos in order to form the baby. If women are able to do that on the physical plane, and since everything comes from the invisible before it's made visible, it also means that all women, through our psyche, we can wish for the golden age, and we have the power to make it come through because we carry that eternal feminine that always wants to bring into manifestation. Cosmic intelligence gave the man the seed, the power to thrust forward. They come with ideas, they come with seeds, they come with a power that is no less than the eternal feminine principle. They work together. But if an initiate, as pure and impersonal and dedicated, who wants to bring the golden age and carries that seed, which was what the Master was doing, and brought women to understand that they have the power to bring that into action because they carry the magnetism that cosmic intelligence gave them to bring that manifestation of the golden age. Do you realize how powerful this is? And we are gifted. Women are gifted with that magnetism, not just for babies in the uterus,
Hmm.
but for the same concept in the invisible, that we are given a divine seed. Bring the golden age on earth, or the kingdom of God on earth. And women, by concentrating. So every morning at sunrise or in your meditation, if you say, I link with all women on earth to bring a golden age for humanity. This is powerful. You link with divine powers. You become a source of light and a source of change for humanity. It's a matter
Do
of
you
being aware of it.
Absolutely. And I think that's why women, and I do this now, never before in my life have I collaborated with so many women to create wonderful movements within our community. There's so many projects that I'm working on right now with incredible women, and they just keep showing up because the more I embody that divine principle within myself, the more I'm able to communicate it because I'm living it, the more I attract the same type of frequency. So instead of, competing with one another, that whole thing is gone. And anyone who's trying to work on that level, it's just not going to happen anymore. It doesn't work. I have made such beautiful relationships with women when we unite together.
Yes. And thanks to your frequency, that you attract a similar frequency. That's one of the laws of the cosmos, the law of correspondence, where you vibrate at a certain level, you attract those women who, even subconsciously, but in their soul, they want to participate to something greater. And one way why women are becoming more sensitive spiritually is because, being under a patriarchal society for so many centuries, women have kept silent. They've worked inside of them. They've been dedicated along family and ruled over the kingdom of the family by education or by nurturing the children, baking the food. But at the same time, they develop some subtle qualities that allow them today to have a greater intuition. That compression through society for so long has allowed them to develop a sensitivity and intuition. And now they're standing up. They're standing up, and more room is given to them.
Hmm.
And also because we find a better balance maybe within ourselves. The more we balance our masculine, feminine within, the more society will give the room that women deserve. And especially those younger women that want to have children, if they
Hmm.
understand the role they have by preparing themselves and by attracting a soul that wants to be a benefactor to humanity. If the women have such power, the system of electroplating, when you dip a metal into a solution and you have a cathode and an anode. Well, when the women are pregnant, they have that same system called galvanoplasty for the scientific term. But it's like their mind, if they send luminous thought to the fetus, the thoughts travel through the blood system, which is the solution, the liquid, and it goes impregnate onto the image of the baby, these thoughts and feelings. Same electroplating system that we have within us as women. So these women can really change humanity in 3 generations. We could have a new group of souls coming that
Wow.
want to help humanity bring a paradise on earth. I know it sounds so futuristic, or maybe like an illusion, but
It's like
no.
out of a Star Wars Dune movie.
Yes, but we have the components. What we miss is the knowledge. the knowledge and the application, because everything is there from the invisible down to the visible. We are built physically on the same laws and principles as originates into the mind of God. So that's what initiatic science reveal, is that we as human beings incarnated on earth are the ones that can be between the invisible world and the visible world and make the change on the planet. It's incredible, the role and
Fascinating.
the responsibility at the same time, but the opportunity to
Mm.
contribute to a new humanity. It's phenomenal.
It is,
Yeah.
it is remarkable, and it makes me feel comfort because it's so chaotic in this world that thinking about those things, that high ideal, like what is possible, makes me feel good and not hopeless. You
Yes.
know, like it's just going to combust one day and I die.
Well, that's being very limited, because you think you're going to die, but your consciousness is going to remain the same on the other side. So the
Yeah.
death is just a physical death, which is an illusion.
Yes. That's a whole nother topic because people are still, I mean, obviously I don't want to die and I don't want anything to happen. You know what I mean? I don't want anything to happen to anyone I care about or anyone in general. But coming to terms with that, it's really not the end, allows for you to be able to handle things in such a better way. It's,
Absolutely. And
right?
And yes, and to take responsibility for thinking that if you do something wrong, that you're going to get away with it because once you die, it's forgotten somewhere. We are subject to the same laws as the rest of all the kingdoms. If we do
Yeah.
something wrong, we're going to pay for it. The law of action reaction, which we call karma, but karma has been kind of distorted along the way for meaning that we have to pay for our misdeed. But karma is actually action and reaction, whether it's good or bad, it's action and reaction. So to think that death is going to erase all the actions and that we won't have the reaction is such an illusion. So knowing that death is only a passage to another dimension allows us to say, I'm not sure I want to pay for this one. So maybe I shouldn't do this act.
Do you think there's a way to neutralize it in the here and now?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's another law that is called like the law of benevolence. That means if you decide to do a work that is impersonal, where you're not doing it because you earn more money, you're not doing it because you try to feed your ego, you're doing it because you want to be of service or because you work for a high ideal. Let's say that there's different high ideals to become your perfect self or to work for the golden age. And if you dedicate some time and some energy without anything personal, then you neutralize what you've created, that accumulated debts. And it's a wonderful way. It's like the cosmos saying, oh, she's working not for herself in the sense of building her ego, but she's working to help humanity. Well, we're going to erase a lot of the mistakes she made in the past. So that's called the law of Dharma. It's like you do, or benevolence, you do something good, and some
Hmm.
of the bad stuff is erased because it's a wonderful system.
Yeah, that's good to know.
That's very good to know.
The one thing I want to ask, the final thing, and I think you can really expand on it. What is the one teaching that you came across where it blew your mind, where you were so amazed at this realization, besides understanding a lot of the teachings, but that one where you're like, wow, life is so much more than I could possibly imagine?
Well, there's a story that comes to mind. It's a bit personal, but I hope it helps some people. I was on a layover in Amsterdam, and the crew had decided to go to the Red District, and I didn't want to go there. And I was reading a book of the master called Harmony. And in this book, I was jet lagged and I was tired, but it allowed a level of receptivity. And I read this line where it says, if you've known the light before and abandoned the light, you pay such a price for it. And I must have fallen asleep or something or I was in a half mind situation. I saw myself kneeling down in a convent, brushing the floor on my knees. The floor was cold. I felt such pity for myself. And I thought, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this? And then the next image that came is I saw myself in those days, they were long skirts, but I had lifted my skirt and kind of showed my ankle. And I was a girl that was a bit kind of advanced or ahead of its time. And like maybe not what was considered not a very moral person. And then I kind of got out of this state. And what I felt inside is I never want to abandon the light ever again. And I started weeping and crying. And I saw that I was on my knees because I had abandoned the light when I was that free girl. And I had to pay the price for having abandoned the light. And now here I was reading this book of the Master and reading what he was saying. If you've abandoned the light, you pay such a price for it. And you never want to abandon the light ever again. Well, that was me. That was me where I promised I would never want to abandon the light again. So this was like, I was young in the teaching. I only been reading the books took me 2 years to read the whole collection. But that moment was the moment that my soul committed to the divine. That whatever temptation is before me, I'd never want to abandon the light again. Because I remembered the suffering in that convent on my knees, the price I had to pay for it. I don't want to go there anymore. I don't want to build a life where I have the immediate gratification of my fun and pay the price later. Now I want to build my life on truths that will make me free and that will give me back the divinity that I have forgotten. So this was a big turning point for me. It's a bit of a personal story, but I hope if anyone recognizes the importance of the light, and in this teaching, the light is given such a priority. Light is important.
Wow, that's incredible.
We have also a meditation we practice called the laser meditation, which is so powerful. You know, the laser can cut through metal, it can cut through cement, it can use very fine laser to do medical surgery these days. Well, when all people meditate on the light at the same time, with the goal to bring a golden age on earth, to bring light to the consciousness of humanity, we have a power, Carla, that is more than an atomic bomb. So I invite all your viewers, wherever you're at, into your development. Dedicate a few minutes to the light and link with all the light workers on the planet to make this planet a garden of paradise. A golden age is here. A golden age is not a system out there. It's not a church. It's not a temple. We are the temple. The golden age is a state of consciousness where we're children of God, where we feel so happy to be alive. We can't wait to look forward to go on living.
Yes.
That's what a
Yes.
golden age. Yes.
I feel like that. I don't want to die. Some people are like, oh, I don't want to live to 100. I'm like, what are you talking about? I want to live forever.
If we become more and more luminous, we won't be afraid of the future. We won't be afraid to go on living. We won't be afraid because it will be a continuation when we're ready to let go of the body. The light will keep working with us.
I just think this realm, whatever you want to call it, is so incredible. And there's so many gifts everywhere. We're so lucky to be incarnated in this dimension. And like I had mentioned to you earlier, of course, taking plant medicine or, when you see what's on the other side. Now, the great masters you had mentioned before were able to astral travel and see basically other realms and understand how the cosmos work, how the universe works, where we're very limited. We can't necessarily see that on an everyday level, right? So sometimes you can take plant medicine and you can go there in a superficial way, let's say. At least you can get an idea, right? At least it expands your mind. But seeing other sides where there is no form, there is no, beautiful people or mothers, fathers, all the everyday things that we have here that are so precious. And so I want to be happy here, and I am happy here, but I want to show people that you just look outside your window. I mean, people are complaining about money. Oh, I don't have enough money. But if you just looked outside and saw how much wealth you do have, how abundant this universe is, right? Wake up to this, because that is the true wealth. How many wonderful people do you have around you? Are you healthy, right? I mean, just anyway, so that is something that I marvel about. And I believe that these teachings really reinforce that way of thinking.
Our reality, Carla, is like seeing through a tiny, tiny little hole. And that's our reality. And we base our sadness or happiness on that reality. The great masters, when they have the purity, the dedication, they're consecrated to do God's work, their consciousness is so much more open that they astral travel, but not just in the astral level. They astral travel to contemplate the whole universe. And that's why their truths is one truth. There's not various truths. There's different ways that they've brought it down for humanity to understand it according to the level of its development. But they are all working together for the same goal. They're all working for us to reintegrate our divinity. So the way they acquire this ability to see the oneness of the universe is through their personal work, through their thousands of incarnations, their self-mastery, for us to see the same truths that they have seen. We have the choice to suffer, to discover each one of these truths, which will take us another millions of incarnations, or we can use the same tools. Purity, 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 purity. It's at the foundation of the spiritual life. And by that, I don't mean just sexually. Purity in what we watch, like you mentioned before, watch beautiful things. In what we read, in what we eat, in what we drink, in the colors we wear. Purity in our thoughts, that they're more impersonal than just personal thoughts, in our feelings, that we start thinking of loving the whole world instead of just the husband. Although I love my husband very dearly, I use my husband to extend my love to the world. So the purity is into every aspect of life. And then we acquire those abilities that will give us the opportunity to astral travel. I've known some people who went astral traveling, but they always remain at the very low level of just going to see what so-and-so is doing. That is not the kind of astral traveling that the great masters aim for. They bypass that astral level and they go into the infinity of God. And it is through our own work. I don't necessarily support medicinal plants to break up the veil and try to see what's on the other side. Because if these people don't have mastery over their own emotions, over their own history, they may hit a really rough spot after they come out of their travels, because all kinds of entities are going to cling to them and require them to do another trip so that they can experience something grandiose. Well, the grandiose has a price to pay when you don't have the self-mastery.
I love that. Good point.
I know of a person who tried these mushrooms that are very popular these days. And she says, Carmen, I wonder why I had a fabulous trip, but I've been in a cloud for a month. For a month, I've been confused. Things are not going right. I says, well, darling, you opened the door to entities that have not acquired self-control on the other side. And now they're using you to have the sensations, and you're feeding them. So this is not the safe way to go. The safe way to go is do the work on yourself. Start controlling your thinking, your feeling. Start behaving well. Even moving things. Move things in a way that you're present so that you don't hurt and knock things over. Be present and bring spirit in everything you do. Do the work on yourself. And I say in the talks that I gave at different expos, our mind is like the camera. If you do a proper focus by concentrating, it opens up to a very clear picture. Well, it's the same with us. Every time we bring some awareness of consciousness onto something, we prepare the path for a clear picture ahead of us. So we don't live in the past, we don't live in the future, we live in the present moment in awareness of consciousness. And then we acquire self-mastery or have more room to repair the things that are not right. And as we repair them, we create a new groove. And in that new groove, we do things better. We do things better with more attention. We get clear. That is truly the path to clairvoyance. The true clairvoyance is not seeing the astral self and what's laying in the cards for me or who I'm going to meet. And true clairvoyance is here. That is intuition. That is what we should develop ourselves by paying attention to each little thing. You remember the movie of Karate Kid with Dan and his teacher Miyagi. Dan wanted to know the right movement to go and face his opponents. And Miyagi was saying, no, Dan, you wash the car with your hand this way and with your hand this way, and you synchronize your hands and you paint the fence with your movement like this. What Miyagi was doing is preparing the psychological conditions to stay focused. Focus is the secret to success. Attention. And that's why people practice yoga. They practice yoga because it requires attention, it requires presence. Of course, people want to be in good shape and they want to relax, so they do certain types of yoga. But the best yoga we are given in the teaching is the yoga of nutrition, Jnani yoga, because we eat 3 times a day. So why not pay attention to our food? Why not bring thinking to our food? That the 4 elements, the planets, the constellation have participated in the making of this food. The sun, the moon, Mother Earth, it's all contained in the food we eat. So if we eat it with attention, with reverence, and then if we think of breathing deeply as we eat and we chew our food, there are glands on the top and the bottom of our tongue that extract the etheric particle from the food. And these etheric particles are the ones that give our defense mechanism in the body. That's our best immunity, is through a strong etheric body. Then practicing 3 times a day the yoga of nutrition, Jnani Yoga. There's a whole book dedicated to this. We practice this self-awareness like Miyagi was teaching to Dan in Karate Kid. And so the day he faced his opponent, he was so focused that with one movement he defeated. It was not a matter of strength. It was not a matter of so much outside technique. It was inner technique. So we're given this chance through yoga of nutrition to develop ourselves, our abilities, and to be healthy, first of all, because we should be eating the most solar food, which means fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, and seeds, and let go of the meat, because the meat carries the cruelty, the fear. It carries an energy that if we want to progress on the spiritual path, eventually we make that decision to let go of meat eating. Do we have time for a little story?
Yes, please.
I was working in business class on a flight one day going between Vancouver and Montreal. And there was a passenger who had such a peculiar smell. I was like, I told my colleague, there's something about this gentleman. I want to find out more about him. So we served the meal. It was first class. It was elaborate service. And after that, I went to talk to him. He told me he had just returned from China, and he had been working for the Canadian government for establishing proper practice in slaughterhouses. So, I mean, he really got my attention. And I asked him the question, is it true that when animals are going to the slaughterhouse, they are so scared of their death that they scream and yell, and you inject them with a tranquilizer so that people can work in slaughterhouses? He said, yes, it's true. So that confirmed to me what Master Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov was saying, is when the animals are taken to the slaughterhouse, there's an acidity in them that is released because of the fear they experience, and that you cannot change. Once it is into their bloodstream, into their flesh, people who eat meat end up eating that. And the tranquilizers that they're given before death so that people can work in that environment, you also inherit this by eating meat. So, I mean, it's really a point of reflection. So after I talked to that gentleman, I went talking to my colleagues, and I said, it just confirmed to me why I'm so happy to be vegetarian. At least I don't have to deal with these two very physical elements. Is the acidity the animal released through fear, and the tranquilizers that science is giving them to. I mean, I know some viewers may not agree with me, but I tell you, as you develop and grow spiritually, you may want to consider making that decision.
You know, as a young girl, I always was cognizant of that. And I remember reading a book about slaughterhouses in grade school. And before reading that book, I didn't really like the idea of eating meat. My mom would make me eat liver, and it was disgusting. And I couldn't figure it out. But anyway, so after reading that as a young girl, I mean, I was traumatized as to learning what animals went through. So most of my life, I was vegetarian, but did eat fish. I did eat fish. You know why? Because I thought, well, Jesus ate fish. That's what I thought. Anyway, okay, so fine. And I thought they at least can swim in the ocean and they have more freedom than how we, keep cows and chickens. And it wasn't until I got pregnant with my son when I was 28 that I was just so hungry. And I never had strange cravings or anything like that, but it was just like I never felt, I just felt like I needed to eat meat. I never really ate beef or pork, but I started eating chicken. So then I stopped. I'm like, okay, I can't do this. It was like this whole back and forth, right? So for many years, and then I got into weight training with like a trainer, exercising. of course, you got to eat your protein. You got to eat your protein. You got to eat your weight in protein. So if I weighed 125 pounds, let's say, which I would really like to weigh that right now,
I do.
I would have to eat 125 grams of protein per day. So then it's like, well, how do you get all that protein? So I lost that initial, part of me as a young girl where I was very intuitive and I knew that eating meat was not a good thing. There's parts in the Bible, because then I started getting into the teachings of the Bible and this whole thing. But there's parts in the Bible where it is written where we are masters of this domain, we basically can slaughter cows as we choose, that whole thing. And then I thought to myself, well, the Native Americans, hunted and that was a normal thing. But then the animals were free and it's like fair game, right? Just
Hmm.
like how a tiger kills a deer. Well, that's nature and that's normal. So doesn't that apply to us as well? So I'm very conflicted with all of this. At the end of the day, I don't want anyone hurt to give me nourishment. Then you get people who are like, oh, well, vegetables, you're killing them. So it's this whole argument.
I
I don't know
think
what
it,
the solution is.
I think it depends on our level of consciousness. For certain people to stop eating meat when they have no awareness of their soul, no awareness of their intuition, they don't know their structure. They don't even know they have a trinity with their head and their heart and their willpower. So it would be very difficult for them. But for people who have a greater sense of awareness and are committed to spiritual development, they start understanding things that doesn't fit in the consciousness of the more limited people. It's like trying to pour a gallon of water into a cup. It just doesn't fit. But for those people who are serious about their progress, who want to advance, it's very possible to get protein outside of meat. There's a lot of vegetables and grains and seeds and proper combination that give you the full protein. I've been vegetarian for 50 years, and I tell you, my health is better than anybody in my family. Um, and there are people who are even more advanced. They become breatharians. They don't eat. They eat prana. And I know of a story of a woman who was pregnant, breatharian, and gave birth to a perfectly healthy baby. Because before vitamins were made into fruits and vegetables, they were there in the ether, and the sun carries
Yes.
wagons of all the elements that we need to survive. So that's why when we practice the yoga of nutrition, we extract the vitamins into their most subtle forms. Vitamins, minerals, ashes, everything that we need. It's there in the prana. It's in the invisible before it becomes visible. Didn't we say that before? Everything
Yes.
starts in the invisible and becomes in the visible. So it's the same. I'm not at the point that I can be breatharians. No, I admit I am not at that level. But there might come a day where, especially now, things are going very, very fast with the coming of Aquarius. There's an acceleration of life. There's an acceleration of the perception of time. There's an acceleration even in our understanding. So who knows that, Aquarian will last 2,160 years. So maybe along the process, we're going to let go of heavier form of food and become more and more breatharians. It's a process. Where are we in the process? It's not, nobody is forcing anyone to be vegetarians unless it's for gain or for other reasons. But in theory, it should be the result of our consciousness. Where we're at in our consciousness, we're willing to take the next step to help and support that expansion that expansion, from the little peephole in
Mhm.
one of the books that I co-authored with the Aquarian team. I
Mhm.
said, if Einstein was developed at 8%, let's be modest, maybe we're at 5%. It means
Oh,
that we operate within the 5% of our patterns, thoughts, memories, but the Christ consciousness is like the 100%. So we have to develop 95% of our potential into who we are as divine beings. So it's a work in progress. It means we're going to let go of certain things and we're going to let go of heavier things. And we're moving towards this expansion. And some of the things will become so irrelevant, we would
mm,
not even think twice about them. Whereas now it may be the focus is, oh, I can't stop eating meat. Oh my God, I'm going to die if I stop eating meat. Yes, but picture yourself into your potential development. And maybe meat is like a bar of soap to me. I would not even think of chewing on it.
yeah. That's how I used to be as a young girl. So I gotta go back to my roots. The one thing that I have a hard time giving up, to be honest, is wine.
Well, they call it spirit for a good reason, eh?
I know. I'm trying, but
Yeah.
I have this European blood, and it's just like
Yes. What
that
what
wine.
what alcohol does is it makes you out of your consciousness. It makes you escape the present moment. And people are drinking often because they want to escape the reality, the everyday trouble, the heaviness of life. They drink and it makes them joyful and happy. It's a form of escape.
For
But there
sure.
are de-alkalized wine that are absolutely tasting and
Oh,
you won't have that effect. I've served it at home and people started talking louder and being more expressive. They didn't know there was no alcohol in my wine.
will you send me some of those that you discovered that was actually
Sure.
good? I'm open to that.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, there's grocery stores, like I don't know if you have Superstore in the States. In Canada, we have a store called Superstore, President's Choice. They have such a collection of good non-alcoholic wines. They have Cabernet Sauvignon, they have Merlot, they have white wine. It's unbelievable to the point that you say, why do I bother buying alcoholic wines if I want to keep my consciousness to myself?
Okay, thank you. Good to know. Thank you.
And there's some really good kombucha. Kombucha is a fermentation, but the amount of alcohol through the fermentation is so minimal that I make my own kombucha and it's better than it comes out rosé because I put a few raspberries in it and it looks like a rosé wine. It's better
Yeah.
than wine and people tell me, Carmen, your kombucha is better than wine. I said, I know, and I don't get drunk on it.
Okay, I'm coming over and you're going to serve that. Okay?
Absolutely,
That's a
come.
deal. I'm going to say, Carmen, where's my rosé?
And I'll know what you mean.
Yes, yes. Oh gosh, it's been such a wonderful time speaking with you. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this and I cannot wait to read the whole collection.
I
I
invite you
just
to
can't
do
wait.
so. And if you're at Conscious Life Expo in February 2026 in Los Angeles, we will be there. It will be under
Perfect.
the Aquarian team, and we will have the whole collection of books. And I'll be giving a talk. The talk is unlocking your intuition in your higher self. So we're going to go into premonition and clairvoyance and how to get information from here to feed your intuition. So that'll
Oh,
be
perfect.
February 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Okay, I will have that on my website, and
Okay.
I'll have your link to your website. And are there other projects that you're working on right now where we can follow you?
Yes, I'll be giving a talk at the Palo Alto Soul Search Expo. That's on November 15th, 16th. The talk I'll be giving then is around nutrition, sexuality, and reincarnation. My talk will be at 2 o'clock. It's at the Crown Plaza of Palo Alto. And we will have the whole display book with my colleagues. My husband is there, the same team that we were at Conscious Life Expo last year. And we're building up our schedule. We'll do the Pathways Natural Living, either in the spring or summer and the fall, and that is either in Maryland or Virginia, depending which one we choose. But for those of you on the eastern United States, Pathways Natural Living, we've been very busy with them for the past 3 years. And the crowd is increasing and the interest for the books is growing. It's wonderful. People have a thirst. That's what is nice. People don't know
Yes.
what they're missing. They know they're missing something. And it's not money. It's not a position in the world. It's not comfort. It's that spiritual nourishment they're missing. And they're finding so much good nutrition in the books of Master Omraam Mikhael Aivanhov, that it's nice to see them come over and over again and say, I bought 10 books the last time and now I'm ready to buy more until I see you again next time. It's wonderful to see
That's how I feel.
souls.
That's exactly how I feel. So I'm just so grateful. And I actually kind of want to teach this. So when I'm done with the collection, or I thought about just going through every book and teaching what I'm learning while I'm going through it, I thought maybe, that could be a good way of introducing someone who wouldn't go to the Conscious Life Expo.
Yes. Well, there's a very interesting phenomena that happens is when you read the book and you highlight what is striking to your consciousness, and you leave the book aside, and then you come back to it a year or two later, and you read the book and you say, oh my God, how did I miss this next paragraph? And you realize the next paragraph is far more important than the one you had highlighted. Well, I
Yeah.
understood the trick. There was the way to measure how my consciousness had expanded. And when I met the master on a one-to-one opportunity with him, twice I met with him in his garden in France and once in Canada, he told me, have you read my books? I said, yes, master, I read the entire collection. Okay, reread them again. I didn't really understand what he had in mind, but when I did, it was a way to measure how much I had grown and how much I had expanded my understanding, because there were things fitting in there that didn't fit the first time. And the third time, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm discovering something new again.
Wow.
So that's how living the books are, because it's his spoken words. They were not
Yes.
analytical sentences put together to sound perfect. It was his life that he was putting through his words, and the books have made up from his words. So like you start reading in between the lines and you say, my gosh, there's such a science, there's such revelations through what he says, and sometimes it is in plain simple language. It's just that our awareness was not grasping that part. So
Fascinating.
you will have such a delightful time.
So it's going to take me 30 years, basically, is what you're saying.
No, keep reading. Keep reading. You have enough for an eternity.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Well, Carmen, I can't wait to see you in February in person.
Yes,
And if
I'll
I
be
could
there.
see you earlier than that, I will. But if not, and also the Om Times TV, I want to
Yes.
have that link too.
Yes, it's on YouTube. You can see at Omram. We have the first series is uploaded on Omram. And on Times TV's channel, we have 3 series. We're completing our 3rd series right now. And I have a whole talk on the sun and the light as pathways to enlightenment. So that was recorded just a few weeks ago. So it's
Oh,
it's
perfect.
live now. It's there.
Okay, I'll put that link too.
and many more subjects.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Carmen. Have a beautiful rest of the week, and we will be in touch.
Thank you for your receptivity and for all the work you do to spread the light on earth. You're a shining star.
Thank you.
Blessing.
Au revoir.
Bye. Au revoir.
Bye.